But Savitri answered to the sophist god, "Once more wilt thou call light to blind truth's eyes? Make knowledge a catch of the snare of ignorance, and the word a dart to slay my living soul? Offer, O King, thy boons to tired spirits and hearts that could not bear the wounds of time. Let those who were tied to body and to mind tear off those bonds and flee into white calm, crying for a refuge from the play of God. Surely thy boons are great, since thou art He. But how shall I seek rest in endless peace, who house the mighty mother's violent force? Her vision turned to read the enigmaed world, her will tempered in the blaze of wisdom's sun and the flaming silence of her heart of love. The world is a spiritual paradox, invented by a need in the unseen, a poor translation to the creature's sense of that which forever exceeds idea and speech, a symbol of what can never be symbolized, a language mispronounced, misspelt, yet true. Its powers have come from the eternal heights and plunged into the inconscient, dim abyss, and risen from it to do their marvelous work. The soul is a figure of the unmanifest. The mind labors to think the unthinkable. The life to call the immortal into birth. The body to enshrine the illimitable. The world is not cut off from truth and God. In vain thou hast dug the dark, unbridgeable gulf. In vain thou hast built the blind and doorless wall. Man's soul crosses through thee to paradise. Heaven's sun forces its way through death and night. Its light is seen upon our being's verge. My mind is a torch lit from the eternal sun. My life, a breath drawn by the immortal guest. My mortal body is the Eternal's house. Already the torch becomes the undying ray. Already the life is the Immortal's force. The house grows of the householder part and one. How sayest thou, truth can never light the human mind, and bliss can never invade the mortal's heart, or God descend into the world he made? If in the meaningless void creation rose, if from a bodiless force matter was born, if life could climb in the unconscious tree, its green delight break into emerald leaves, and its laughter of beauty blossom in the flower, if sense could wake in tissue, nerve and cell, and thought seize the grey matter of the brain, and soul peep from its secrecy through the flesh, how shall the nameless light not leap on men, and unknown powers emerge from nature's sleep? Even now, hints of a luminous truth, like stars, arise in the mind-mooned splendor of ignorance. Even now, the deathless lover's touch we feel. If the chamber's door is even a little ajar, what then can hinder God from stealing in? Or who forbid his kiss on the sleeping soul? Already God is near, the truth is close, because the dark atheist body knows him not. Must the sage deny the light, the seer his soul? I am not bound by thought or sense or shape. I live in the glory of the infinite. I am near to the nameless and unknowable. The ineffable is now my household mate. But standing on eternity's luminous brink, I have discovered that the Word was He. I have met spirit with spirit, self with self, but I have loved too the body of my God. I have pursued him in his earthly form. A lonely freedom cannot satisfy a heart that has grown one with every heart. I am a deputy of the aspiring world. My spirit's liberty I ask for all.
But Savitri answered to the sophist word, once more, wilt thou call light to blind?
To blind.
Blind? Truth, eyes, make knowledge, the catch of the snare of ignorance, and the word that are to slay my living soul.
So she's really mocking him. No? Again, are you going to try to call light, what you call light, to blind the eyes of truth, to make them blind, to dazzle them? Are you going to try to make knowledge, the knowledge with a capital K, as a trap, a catch of the snare of ignorance? If hunters want to catch an animal, they will tie a wire in such a way that when he walks along the path, he will trip the catch, and the snare will come and catch his leg. So he says, is that what you want to do? You want to make this knowledge as a catch for the snare of ignorance? You want to deceive me with what you are saying? You want to use the great, creative, eternal word like a weapon, like a dart, an arrow, to kill my living soul? She's not deceived by him at all. Sarojini.
She is given this N, light, capital N. That means all the truths this God of Death told is described as light.
There is a certain light in it, no? But it's a kind of light, a kind of knowledge that misleads. And he's using it to mislead. Martin said last week, no, that some of the words that death says, they are very similar to what the mother tells us for Pati. But it's used with another intention. It is used to discourage her, to turn Savitri back from fulfilling her mission.
Thy bones to craft spirits and other and hearts that would not bear the wound of time. Let those who were trapped in body and in mind tear up those bonds and feel into white calm, crying for a refuge from like the play of God.
Yes. Death was offering her release and peace, and many seekers have accepted this offer. They've accepted that the way to find eternal peace is to dissolve their individuality, to merge back into the origin. But Savitri is saying something else. She says, these gifts of yours, O King, you offer them to people who are tired, hearts that haven't been strong enough or courageous enough to bear the wounds of time. Let those people who were tied to their bodies and their minds, if they want to escape from the body, they want to escape from the mind, let them tear off those bonds, and they can run away from the world into your white calm, your peace, crying for a refuge. A refuge is a safe place. They want a safe place away from this play of God, which is too difficult for them to bear. They don't want to play. It's too boisterous, too challenging for them. They want to escape from it.
Surely thy wounds are great, since thou art weak. But how shall I seek rest in endless peace, who house the mighty mother's violent force? Her vision turned to read the enigmatic world, her will tempered in the blaze of wisdom's sun, in the flaming silence of her heart of love.
So boons, gifts. Surely you can give great gifts, since you yourself are an aspect at least of the Lord. But don't expect me to choose rest in endless peace, because I'm carrying within me that violent force of the Supreme Divine Mother. I'm carrying in me her vision, her way of seeing things. She turns to read this world, which is an enigma, a mystery, a puzzle. She can understand all this puzzle. And I'm carrying her vision in me. I'm carrying in me her will, tempered in the blaze of wisdom's sun. This word, tempered, it refers to a process when the smith is making a sword or a knife in order to make the metal very, very strong. It has to be plunged alternately into the fire and then into cold water. So this is tempering. It makes the steel very, very strong. So Savitri is referring to the will of the Supreme Mother like a sword which gets tempered in the heat of the sun of wisdom, wisdom with a capital W, in that blazing light of wisdom. And the will is also tempered in the flaming silence of her heart of love. The blaze of wisdom, the silence of the heart of love. This is what tempers and makes strong the will of the Supreme Mother.
The world is spiritual paradox, invented by a need in the unseen. A poor translation to the creature sense of that which forever exceeds idea and speech. A symbol of what can never be symbolized. A language mispronounced, misspelled, yet true.
Mother has remarked on this line in the agenda. She liked it very, very much. This world that we live in, it's a riddle, it's an enigma, because it's a paradox. A paradox is something that seems to be contradictory. She says it's a spiritual paradox. And this strange opposition, this apparent contradiction, has been invented because there's a need in the unseen, in the invisible, for this expression. The world as we experience it is a poor translation of that which forever exceeds idea and speech. When we are explaining something to somebody who speaks another language, we have to make a translation. And even if we are translating some idea that is familiar to that person, it's already difficult. But when we are trying to translate something that is beyond idea, beyond speech, so all this world that we experience, she says, it's a poor translation to our senses, to our sense of touch, sight, hearing, taste, smell, of that which never can be, of that which ever exceeds idea and speech, of that truth, that supreme reality, which we can never really put into thought or into words. This world, all of it, and all the things in it are symbols of that reality which can never be symbolized. A symbol is a figure, a shape, a picture which stands for something else. We have Sri Aurobindo's symbol. We see the symbol, we think of Sri Aurobindo. We see Mother's symbol, we think of Mother. We see the symbol of the number 5, and we think of 5 things. So a symbol is a simple, very, very simple form which reminds us of something or stands for something much more complex. So Savitri is saying this whole world is some kind of translation or symbol which is expressing that which never can be expressed. And the forms, the movements, the energies of this world are like a language. This language is getting mispronounced. We don't know how to pronounce it correctly. It's getting misspelt. We don't know how to write it correctly. But the language itself is true. Yes. This language of symbols in which everything in this world is an expression of the supreme reality. Bhavana.
Its powers have come from the eternal height and plunged into the inconscient dim abyss, and risen from it to do their marvelous work.
You could read the next sentence
The
also.
soul is the figure of the unmanifest. The mind labors to think the unthinkable. The life to call the immortal into birth. The body to enshrine the invisible.
Yes. So its powers, that is to say this world, the powers that work in this world, they have come from the eternal heights and they've plunged down into that dim abyss, that deep, dark gulf of the inconscient. And they have risen from it to do their marvelous work. And then she gives examples of these powers. One of the powers is the soul. The human soul is a figure of the unmanifest supreme divine. Our mind, that's another power, which is laboring. The characteristic of our mind is that it has to make a lot of effort. It's hard work, to think. But what it's trying to think out is the unthinkable, and it's trying to think for the unthinkable. Another very important power that's risen from the abyss is the life force. The life is laboring also to call the immortal into birth. give the possibility of life in the world to the immortal spirit. And the body, the work of the body really, is to create a shrine, a temple, for what can never be limited. The body is a limited form, but it can give a shrine, a little temple, where the illimitable can stay, can be present. Lela.
The world is not cut off from truth and God. In vain thou hast dug the dark, invisible gulf. In vain thou hast built the blind and doorless wall. Man's soul crosses through thee to paradise. Heaven's sun forces its way through death and night. Its light is sleeping upon our being's verge.
Yes. So death is always trying to convince her that there's an unbridgeable gulf between the supreme consciousness and the world. And she is contradicting him flatly. She says the world is not cut off from truth and God. Truth and God are here. You have tried to dig this dark, unbridgeable gulf that can't be crossed between God and the world. You've dug a deep ditch and you've built a wall that has no windows and no doors. The wall is blind, it has no windows, we can't see through it. But you've done that in vain, because man's soul can cross through thee, through you, death, to paradise, to the worlds of perfect delight. And that light, that sun of truth, heaven's sun, can force its way. It's so powerful. It can force its way through death and night. And we can see its light on the edge of our being, on the borderline of our being, maybe the horizon of our being, our being's verge. A verge is the very edge. And then she speaks for herself. Kamala.
My mind is a torch lit from the eternal sun. My life is a breath drawn by the immortal guest. My mortal body is the eternal house. Already the torch becoming the undying flame. Already the life is the immortal force. The house goes of the householder part and
Thank you. We could remember these words, no? My mind is a torch that has been lit from the eternal sun. That's true for all of us. How could we have a mind? How could we have consciousness at all? Our mind is lit from that eternal sun. My life is a breath drawn by the immortal guest. It would be so wonderful if we could be conscious of this, that every life breath that we draw, it's the Lord, the immortal guest within us, who is breathing in and out, or we're doing it for him. He's doing it for us, actually. And my mortal body, my body that's supposed to die, is actually a house for the eternal to live in. And then she says, already this torch, this light of the mind, is beginning to become the undying ray of eternal knowledge. Already this life force which is in me, it is the force of the immortal being. And this house, which the body, is becoming a part, united with the one who's living in the house, the guest, the immortal guest, the Lord himself. Say again.
How sayest thou truth can never lie within the mind, and bliss can never invade the mortal's heart, or both descend into the world from age?
Yes, perhaps you will stop there if you don't mind. It's clear, no? The words are quite clear. How can you possibly say that the truth can never light the human mind, and bliss can never come into the human's hearts, and God cannot descend into the world he made? How can you say that? It's so obviously ridiculous. And then she gives examples to prove to him. Joel.
If in the meaningless void creation rose, if from the bodiless force matter was born, if life could climb in the unconscious tree, its green delight break into emerald leaves, and its laughter of beauty blossom in the flower, if sense could wake in tissue, nerve and cell, and thought seize the grey matter of the brain, and soul peep from its secrecy through the flesh, how shall the nameless light not leap on men, and unknown powers emerge from nature's sleep?
All these miraculous things have happened. From the meaningless emptiness of space, this creation has emerged, this manifestation. Before matter, there was just energy, bodiless force, energy without form. But out of that has emerged all this matter that we know. If life could climb in the unconscious tree and its green delight break into emerald leaves, as if the beautiful leaves, sometimes we feel like that, no? There's a tree in my garden which hasn't been very well looked after, and it has difficulty putting out its leaves every year, and every year the caterpillars come and eat it up. But this year it's got such a beautiful sprout of green leaves and no caterpillars, and the green is so beautiful, it's looking as if that tree is just smiling. It's so happy to be able to put out its leaves, no? And its laughter of beauty blossom in the flower. These are expressions of the life force, of its delight, of its consciousness. Miraculous. And then here we've got these material bodies, tissue, nerve, cell. If sense can wake up in that we can touch things and have a sense of what they are, know them. Some kind of consciousness wakes up in the body. And thought gets hold of this grey matter of the brain, which doesn't even have nerves in it. And soul peeps from its secrecy through the flesh, can express itself through the body. If all these miraculous things have happened, how shall the nameless light not leap on men? Of course it's going to leap on men. And more unknown powers are going to emerge from this sleep, this trance of nature. It's so obvious. Helmut, you'll read?
Even now, hints of a luminous truth like stars arise in the mind-moon splendor of ignorance. Even now, the deathless lover's touch you feel. If the chamber's door is even a little ajar, what then can hinder thou from stealing in? Or who forbid his kiss on the sleeping soul?
Yes. So even now, in this state of evolution, we live in a kind of darkness, of ignorance. But even now, like stars in the night, no? Hints of a luminous truth appear in our ignorance. The stars are symbols of the many truths, no, that come to light up our minds. So these hints of a luminous truth, they come into our minds like stars, arising in the mind-mooned splendor of ignorance. The mind is like a moon. It's reflecting a higher light. It doesn't have a light of its own. And this darkness of our ignorance gets lit up by that reflected light. And a moonlit night can be so beautiful, no? The splendor of the full moon night. Already it is like that. Either there are stars or there's the moon, or both. No? The mind does get lit up by truth. And even now, we human beings, we can feel the touch, the blessing touch of the deathless lover. So if we have the door of our heart, the chamber of our heart, even just a little bit open, ajar, it means the door is not open and it's not closed. It's just banging a bit, it's making a noise. If the door is just a little bit ajar, if it's not locked, who can stop God from creeping in? He will creep in. Who will forbid him his kiss on the sleeping soul? The soul may be sleeping in the heart, but if the heart is a little bit open, God will certainly come in and wake up the soul with his kiss. Mila.
Already God is near, the truth is close, because the dark atheist only knows him not. Must the sage deny the light, the seer is soul?
So she affirms it. God is near, the truth is closed. The body doesn't believe in him. The body is dark, unconscious, atheist. It doesn't believe in God. But that's because the poor body doesn't know. No? But the sage, the one who has gained wisdom, he doesn't have to deny the light. The seer doesn't have to deny he's a soul. In a higher level of development than just the physical being. We can experience these things. We don't have to deny them just because the body is relatively unconscious. Gumsun.
I'm not bound by thought or sense or shape. I live in the glow of the infinite.
immutable, nameless, and unknowable. The ineffable is now my household name.
Yeah, so she can say this because of the great yoga that she has done. No? We can't all say this. But she says, I am not bound, I'm not limited by thought or the senses or by any shapes. No. I live in the glory of the infinite consciousness. I'm very close and intimate to the nameless, the unknowable, the supreme, the ineffable, the one who we cannot express, is now my household mate, my companion, my daily, constant companion. But she's going to say something surprising. Dawn. Dawn?
But standing on eternity's beauty's brink, I have discovered that the world was he. I have met spirit with spirit, self with self, but I have loved too the body of my Lord. I have pursued him in his earthly form.
So she can say, no, that I live in the glory of the infinite. The ineffable is now my household mate. But standing on the very edge of eternity, on the brink, I've discovered that the world of time and space and matter and form, was the eternal, was He, the Lord. I've had the experience of meeting spirit with spirit, self with self. But I've fallen in love with the body of my God, the material form. I'm pursuing Him. I'm wanting to hold Him in His earthly form, the divine as manifested in the world. And because of that, she says,
a lonely freedom cannot satisfy. A heart that has grown one with every heart. I am the deputy of the aspiring world. My spirit's liberty I ask for all.
Yes. So, because my heart has widened and identified with all the hearts in the whole manifestation, I can't be satisfied just with freedom for my single self. A lonely freedom cannot satisfy a heart that has grown one with every heart. I'm living now as a deputy, she says, a representative of the aspiring world. And what I'm asking for, this freedom of spirit that I have achieved, I want everybody to have that. That's what I want, she said. Yes.
I have a general question about the last passage.
Yes.
If I understood well, Death himself is to a God.
Yes.
And couldn't you suppose that Savitri, that what Savitri is saying, that Death knows that a lot of the things he says? Do you understand?
Yes, I think that she has this knowledge But she still has to face this opposition that the Lord is offering her in this form. So that's why when he says, when she says, surely thy boons are great because you art he. Now that art he. It's acknowledging that he too is the divine. Everything is the divine. But he is opposing her will. And it's very interesting that she claims the right, even knowing that he represents the divine. Still, she's going to demand her spirit's liberty for all. She's going to convince him that that is her right. This is the drama that's going on here. And why is he opposing her? It's because all these things that he is saying, they are true in a certain way in the world as it is. And she has to overcome the force of that reality, of that actuality.
Perhaps, sorry.
Go ahead.
That's an answer about an experience I like to share.
Yes.
Sometimes I have the experience it's a debate between two gods.
Yeah, two aspects, no? Like I must remember to bring the text of that aphorism of Aurobindo's, no? Where he says, it's as if I'm having to wrestle with God. Something is drawing me upwards and something is holding me down. But I have to go on going upwards even if the Lord is holding me down. So that's what's exemplified here. And that's a problem for us in our lives, no? In the ignorance. If we can't see clearly, is this the Lord that's challenging me? Or is it some adverse force that's trying to lead me astray? So to get this clear knowledge, which is not of the mind, but of the spirit, is very important for us if we want to progress further. That's the promise, no? That all this struggle is going on. We read it yesterday in the Life Divine. But what's going on is a process of emerging from unconsciousness, the spontaneous harmony of inconscient nature. And we're passing through, he says, a pregnant confusion of mind and life and body. But we will, in the result of this emergence, we will emerge into a conscious, spontaneous harmony. He says it much better than me, of course. I can't remember his exact words. So it'll be interesting to see. Death has not yet given up. He's going to continue opposing her, and we will see what are his arguments next. As I mentioned before, Mother was very, very interested in this book, and particularly in this last canto. And I also feel that somehow it's in this canto that if Mother said, this is his message, this is Sri Aurobindo's message, something like that. It's here. Well, particularly Book 10 and especially Canto 4, yes. This amazing colloquy of the original gods. wrestling on the verge of the unknown, doesn't it? A colloquy of the original gods meeting upon the borders of the unknown. Her soul's debate with embodied nothingness. It's at the bottom of page 12. You can have a look for yourselves. Wonderful summary of this process. We'll stop there for today. But Savitri answered to the sophist god, "Once more wilt thou call light to blind truth's eyes, make knowledge a catch of the snare of ignorance, and the word a dart to slay my living soul? Offer, O king, thy boons to tired spirits and hearts that could not bear the wounds of time. Let those who were tied to body and to mind tear off those bonds and flee into white calm, crying for a refuge from the play of God. Surely thy boons are great, since thou art He. But how shall I seek rest in endless peace, who house the mighty mother's violent force, her vision turned to read the enigmaed world, her will tempered in the blaze of wisdom's sun, and the flaming silence of her heart of love. The world is a spiritual paradox, invented by a need in the unseen, a poor translation to the creature's sense of that which forever exceeds idea and speech, a symbol of what can never be symbolized, a language mispronounced, misspelt, yet true. Its powers have come from the eternal heights and plunged into the inconscient, dim abyss, and risen from it to do their marvelous work. The soul is a figure of the unmanifest. The mind labors to think the unthinkable, the life to call the immortal into birth, the body to enshrine the illimitable. The world is not cut off from truth and God. In vain thou hast dug the dark, unbridgeable gulf. In vain thou hast built the blind and doorless wall. Man's soul crosses through thee to paradise. Heaven's sun forces its way through death and night. Its light is seen upon our being's verge. My mind is a torch lit from the eternal sun, my life a breath drawn by the immortal guest. My mortal body is the Eternal's house. Already the torch becomes the undying ray. Already the life is the immortal's force. The house grows of the householder, part and one. How sayest thou, truth can never light the human mind, and bliss can never invade the mortal's heart, or God descend into the world he made? If in the meaningless void creation rose, if from a bodiless force matter was born, if life could climb in the unconscious tree, its green delight break into emerald leaves, and its laughter of beauty blossom in the flower, if sense could wake in tissue, nerve, and cell, and thought seize the grey matter of the brain, and soul peep from its secrecy through the flesh, how shall the nameless light not leap on men, and unknown powers emerge from nature's sleep? Even now hints of a luminous truth like stars arise in the mind-mooned splendour of ignorance. Even now the deathless lover's touch we feel. If the chamber's door is even a little ajar, what then can hinder God from stealing in, or who forbid his kiss on the sleeping soul? Already God is near, the truth is close. Because the dark atheist body knows him not, must the sage deny the light, the seer his soul? I am not bound by thought or sense or shape. I live in the glory of the infinite. I am near to the nameless and unknowable. The ineffable is now my household mate. But standing on eternity's luminous brink, I have discovered that the Word was He. I have met spirit with spirit, self with self, but I have loved too the body of my God. I have pursued Him in His earthly form. A lonely freedom cannot satisfy. a heart that has grown one with every heart. I am a deputy of the aspiring world. My spirit's liberty I ask for all.